This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the podcast, Chad Bennett. Chad Bennett.
Yes. Yes, Mark.
You know what's funny, dude, is I've called you Chad Bennett instead of just Chad, the entire time you've been in our group.
I haven't even noticed that.
Oh, have you not?
No.
Because were you in the first mastermind with me?
Yeah. First mastermind. That mastermind was like all-star mastermind. Yeah. I'll just say that. We won't say who else was in that group, but there was a lot of studs in that group. And you were one of those.
Well, you also got introduced to there was a guy in our group that got expelled, I guess is the best way to put it. And we heard why. Do you remember that? So the very first guy to talk was the one that got financially damaged.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't put two and two together. I haven't thought about it since then, but that's interesting.
Yeah, it's funny too. It's funny you say that because when you get in these masterminds, right, you think that people are going to remember your problem.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, dude, people are focusing on their own shit.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to be.
No.
It's not all about.
I mean, as I think about it, I can go through and remember all that stuff, but yeah. We're and at that first mastermind, I'm just worried about not saying something stupid. I'm just worried, what am I really thinking? But I wasn't fully vulnerable in that. I didn't know where my place was at that point yet. Yeah. So.
Well, and you had that was your first time doing breath work too, right?
Yeah.
And breath work was pretty impactful for you?
Amazing.
Yeah.
One of the top experiences that I've had ever in something like that, in a situation like that. I've done breath work before, but not to that level. And I got a lot of things out of the previous breath works that I did, but that one was, I won't say life-changing, but it was significant in my life. And it was specifically for a member of my family. Yeah. There were things that I needed to do. There were things that I got out of it. So let's talk a little bit about that. So that breath work, I went into it thinking, okay, I want to use this to think about my wife and how amazing she is. And kind of just give her the time that she deserves in my head. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just wanted to give her that mentally, think of all the amazing things that she does and then fully reflect on that so that afterwards I could show my appreciation. It turned out to be something completely different that happened there. It was another member of my family that I feel like I had wronged. And in that breath work, I was able to see how that person felt when I did those things. And I got in an argument with one of the members of my family, and I said some things that I shouldn't have said, which happens quite often, right? For me, at least. Yeah. I was able to feel how they must have felt when I had that argument with them and realized that I had to make some significant changes and apologize for those things. So it was very impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. Our men's group is such a fun thing because it's so different than everything else, right? We were just talking about this. It's not for business. It's not just for personal development. It's literally for everything.
Yeah.
And it's really about us as members of the group and how we interpret the lessons and stuff and then apply them to each other. Would you feel that way?
Absolutely. As you were saying that, it's almost like peeling an onion. So we go in and, we try to get vulnerable. So we peel a piece of the onion and then we get to a level and then that level gets us a little bit more deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've been to 2 Ludises now and, I just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And those things, I hate to say it on film because I feel like there's a lot of things that people can see from the outside and be like, oh, he said that. And I don't see that change. Internally, I definitely do see a change. I think it's helped me understand the importance. It's helped me better understand the importance of communication with specific people in my life. My core team, which is my family, it's helped me understand that I need to be better at communicating and I need to be better at saying I'm wrong when I'm wrong and recognizing certain things with my core team. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've gotten out of. I definitely have better relationships with certain people in my family because of it. So that's been the biggest aha moment I've had from the group is, and when I first went in, I wasn't fully open. And now I feel like, okay, let's dig in. Let's get down to the nitty gritty once we go to these things. In fact, that's one of the things I was thinking. So, I always have this thing in my head. I'm always worried about what I say. And I said it actually at the last Ludus where I'm like, there's things that I said. So I'm an active believing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I feel like in the Luduses, we do these cool activities and then we reflect. And it's almost like testimony meeting. Yeah. And I got up and I'm like, there's still things that literally 20 years ago that I still think about that I said certain things in testimony meeting that I'm like, why did I ever say that? That was so stupid. And so when we get in these situations, I'm like, oh crap, what are the things that I'm going to say that I'm totally going to regret? But I also want to be super open. So yeah, I want to get down to the nitty gritty and not just talk about surface level stuff that people go off, but stuff that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's when you say you worry about stuff from like 20 years ago, like, is it haunting you or can you not?
No, it does. It's just stupid things. It's just, it's just really stupid stuff that I shouldn't.
Because we always get really heavy on like, just forget the past, right?
Right.
And just let it go because we all need to live present.
Right.
Like, why do you think your mind pulls you back all the time?
I don't know. I keep going back to this group and, when Jimmy had us write down the things that matter most to us and those numbers over the last 3 weeks. And one of the things that I am really high on is, and I can't remember the correct term because it's been a couple weeks, but positive feedback, like people seeing what I do and recognizing that stuff, whatever it is. It kind of showed that I want to be seen for the things that I want to be seen for. Yeah. So, being a father, being a business owner, those type of things. Yeah. And I want those accolades. Like that is a motivating thing for me. And so I think the things that I think about are things that might detract from what I want people to see. Or I might have said something in a way that it's so stupid when I think back to it, but it's just one of my quirks.
Yeah, just one of your things.
Yeah,
for sure.
Which you're right. I should just let it go.
I guess I'm hinting
this
towards that.
This specific one was right after we got married. I got married with my wife, and we had her whole family that was there. Yeah, and I got up and I said like all the things that I love about my wife, and that's not what the meeting's for. Yeah, but I used it for that, and I know I'm just like. Yeah. Stupid stuff. It doesn't even make any sense. So
yeah. Hey, at least it's a fun memory.
Right. Yeah. Fun somewhat.
So walk us back. Are you a Utah boy?
No, I'm from Arizona, Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Born and raised. I moved 21 times before I turned 19. Ugh. So let me give you kind of a rough overview that I give people. So born in Arizona. I had a very chaotic childhood. But it was amazing. It was an amazing childhood. I don't look back on it and think, oh, this was horrible. No, I look back on it and I think this was awesome. I loved my childhood. There were a lot of divorces. And I feel like that time it created who I am. It allowed me to see things that people just don't normally see. It allows me to see around corners that people just don't have the experience of seeing. And so I loved it. I have I have 4 amazing parents, but I have 2, my mother and my father, amazing people, loving, never once felt like I didn't have that love in my life. Yeah. And so it was a great childhood. And I usually talk about this stuff in a business setting. So I'll kind of go down that path of, first 3 loves in life. And this describes my upbringing. First one was sports, love sports. I grew up playing sports all the way through high school into college. And then the second one was girls, love girls. right now I have a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful girls. So, right, we continue down that path. And then my third love in life was technology. I just fell in love with computers. When I was in 2nd grade, we got Apple Mac 2E computers. And they're the one like off-white computer and really tiny screen. And I fell in love with computers, just fascinated by them. And any chance that I got, I would get time on these computers, and then we got them at my house. And so those 3 things really that is what I spent all my time on. And that was my upbringing. 21 times before I turned 19, I went to high school called Mesa Mountain View, which used to be a really high-level athletic school. Won a couple state championships in football. Yeah. Go Toros. And it was just a great upbringing. And then I served at an LDS mission in Paraguay, Asuncion, Paraguay, and came back and went to BYU. And that's when we've just stayed. So I met my wife here in Utah. We've stayed and we love Utah. We've traveled a lot around the world. And aside from Hawaii, Utah is our favorite place in the world. Okay. It's just home, right? We come back.
Is she a Utah girl?
No, she's from Missouri.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, her family, they lived all over. Her parents are both doctors, and so they would go where the jobs were. Mm-hmm. And she grew up in the Missouri area. So Liberty, Missouri, about half a mile away from Liberty Jail, which is a LDS a significant place in the LDS culture. Yeah. She was from Missouri. She came to BYU and we met at an underground dance party. Yeah.
So describe underground.
It was in a parking garage underground at, dang it. I always forget the name. It's right across the street from the Riviera. There was an underground dance party in the parking garage. And it was the greatest ratio ever. It was like 30 to 50 girls to maybe 3 to 5 dudes. And so I kept going back and forth between the girls. And it was super loud because it's underground and it's reverberating off of the ceiling of this concrete. Yeah. And I kept going from group to group and it was really dark, so I couldn't see anybody. And she actually came up to me and she's like, "Hey, you've been dancing with me, but I don't know who you are. I don't know your name." And then pretty much we hit it off right then and went over to her house, I think 2 nights later, and then have just been together ever since. And for me, it's been amazing. I can't. Yeah,
and you're a guy like me. We both got married super young.
Oh, yeah.
How old is she?
So she was 19. So we got engaged on her 19th birthday and married May, June, July, August, about 4 months later.
Oh, nice.
And then I was 22. So I had been home for a little over a year and maybe 2 weeks off my mission. Yeah. And we got pregnant 5 weeks later. And the story goes, I thought we had a conversation about being on birth control. And she thought we weren't going to be on it. But it's worked out. Those first 2 years, I'll tell you what, those first 2 years, they were difficult. We have 2 A players. Well, 2 A-type personalities. Yeah. And it was difficult figuring out how we could work together, how we could, take our pieces and go. And ever since those 2 years, right? It's not perfect, but it's been awesome. Yeah. Now we've been married 21 years, almost 22 years. This August will be 22 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, that's freaking awesome.
Good times.
We, on the 24th of this month, so next weekend, dude, we hit our 19th.
Oh, congrats.
So, yeah, I'm pretty excited, dude. I'm kind of excited for the 20th, man, because that's, I never thought I'd be there, right? Yeah. Like saying you've been married for 20 years is kind of wild. Because I got married at 22 as well, right? So I guess on our 22nd anniversary is going to be really weird because I'll have been married as long as I wasn't. Yeah. Including being a baby.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
You're there, actually. Now I think about it. You're right there.
We are right there.
Dang. Good marriage?
Great marriage.
Yeah.
Wait, no, we just hit our 20. We're on 21 because we got married in 2002, and we're in 2003. Yeah, we're 2023. Yeah, so sorry, math.
So next year.
So 21. We're hitting 21. We're in our 20th. We're hitting 21.
Nice.
It's been marriage has been great. I have an amazing wife. She is truly amazing. Now everybody says that, right? Or they feel like they're supposed to say that. But here's the reality. My wife, Tammy, she is amazing.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of other people to back me up on that. She's just, and what makes her amazing? Everybody says amazing and they throw that word around. She's just so darn giving. In fact, I have to, or I feel like I have to slow her down because she's always the one that's like, yeah, I'll be team mom on whatever sport, or yeah, I'll be the coach if there's no coaches for girls soccer or for little boys t-ball or all that stuff. She's always serving people, and she's always the one that's saying yes to all that stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, why can't you just spend that time on something else? And it's totally selfish when I'm trying to pull her away from that, but she's always giving, and she doesn't take much, but she gives a heck of a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. It's fun being around guys that like love being married.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is in my life, but I think most of the people I associate with love being married.
Yeah.
I think you just kind of start jiving on that same frequency, right?
Yeah.
So why would you explain that you guys have done so well? Why do you have such a good marriage? What are like your top key tenets of that?
Well, we've had to learn how to communicate with each other. I think that was one of the difficult things when we were, when we had just gotten married. We didn't really know how to tell each other what we actually felt. Yeah. So we showed something that was completely different than we felt, or at least I feel like I'm an open book. People usually know what I'm feeling or thinking because I'm in our marriage, I'm the emotional one. She's the steady state, always going like this, just steady. And I'm all over the place. And so people usually know how I'm feeling because they see it in emotion. Where she, being that steady person, I didn't really understand what she was thinking. She was communicating lovingly, but there were things that she had issues with that weren't being communicated. Yeah. And so once I finally found out what those things were, it changed my whole perspective of what was going on in our marriage. And it was difficult. It was painful to learn some of those things. But they were things that I needed to know. They were things that she felt I wasn't living up to. And so, that's, I think one of the first things is that communication. I think that's so important, letting people actually understand. Because if you don't communicate how you're feeling or what you're thinking, no one can help you. And us as guys, we're not I'm not saying everybody, but it's just generally a guy is not going to be thinking, what are these things that she's thinking she wants me to do? We're just like, hey, if you want me to do something, tell me. Yeah. So I wasn't thinking of what she might have been thinking. I was just doing, and it clearly wasn't up to her standard, which was the truth. Yeah. I wasn't up to the standard that she deserved. And so just learning that. Communication, number one. Forgiveness, number two. It's been a lot, and it's more on her side than my side, right? There's not much that I need to forgive, but just realizing that everybody has their challenges, and overlooking, I don't know if overlooking is the right word, but forgiving and helping for those things. So that's the second one, forgiveness. That one just came to me. I don't know if I've ever communicated that one before, but I've got 6 kids. That title in my life is my favorite title. Yeah. Hands down, being a father, nothing compares. Yeah. I've traveled all over the world. We've done some amazing things in business. Done a lot of cool stuff. Nothing compares to just being dad. Nothing. Watching your kids on the sidelines play football, your daughters play soccer, gymnastics, that type of stuff. That title brings me so much more joy than anything that I've ever experienced outside of that. Even better, here's the crazy thing. So I talked about when I grew up, sports were my life. Football, baseball, wrestling, track. I did a lot of stuff. And we did it at a high level. We won 2 state championships in football in high school. Like I said, go Toros. We're 28-0. Yeah. We actually just this last year got inducted into the Arizona Hall of Fame.
Oh, your team did?
Our team did.
Nice.
So I'm a 2-time Arizona State Hall of Famer. And it's the whole team. So it's not me individually. And then like all the way down. So Arizona State, our city, Mesa, our school, Mountain View. We were just awesome. And we were awesome because we had this really amazing guy that went to the NFL. His name's Todd Heap. Yeah. What's up if you see this, Todd? But we played at a high level. And we worked hard. And up to the point of being a dad, the act of winning state championship my senior year, that was the greatest day of my life. Yeah. The most like fulfilling achievement that I had achieved to that point. And I didn't feel like there was something that was going to surpass that. And just the act of being a dad in certain moments there's so many kid moments of me being a dad and seeing my kids do certain things that have surpassed that moment for me. And so it's been awesome. I don't know how we got on this subject, the 6 kids. Oh, here's how.
Just your life,
I have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And so I have a 17-year-old that's about to go to college. I have my 17-year-old. She just made the BYU cheer team. She's amazing. I have a 15-year-old that is going into 11th grade. She's a soccer player and she's crazy smart and she's beautiful like my other daughters. And then I have an 11-year-old. And so with my older kids, I also have 3 boys. So 6 kids. My oldest boy, he's 20, about to turn 21. He's serving an LDS mission right now in Washington, D.C. And he's about to go on he's coming home from his mission in 2.5 months. And my daughters, him and my daughter are going to BYU together. Oh, and nice. So I'm thinking right now about, okay, we got to think about marriages and prepare, not necessarily marriage, but preparing them. What are the things that I need to impart on my kids before they get married? That's been on my mind a lot for the last 1.5 to 2 years. Yeah. And one of the biggest things, I won't tell you all the things, but I'll tell you one of the biggest things that I've seen is I think it's important that those at a high level, because everybody can't fit this. I've been telling my girls to look for the high achievers. Those are the guys, my daughters specifically, those are the guys that they marry. The high achievers are the ones that are going to continue to produce. You look at high achievers in life today at their 30s and 40s, and I guarantee you go back to their teens and their 20s, and they were doing things at a high level. It doesn't matter what it was, whether it's in sports or whether it's in orchestra or education or whatever it is. I can guarantee those high achievers at 40 were likely high achievers in their teens and 20s. They're the hardest workers. They're the ones that are doing things. So one of the things I tell my girls is to look for those high achievers, guys that are achieving something. And then on the flip side, to merit that, they need to be a high achiever themselves. And they, in their current state, they definitely are.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things. And so that's been heavy on my mind. What can I say to them to help them have a better shot at a happy marriage?
What's your best advice to them?
So there's 3 things I give. And one of these goes right down the line of me being an active, believing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I know everybody's not on this. Mm-hmm. But it's more about the church or the gospel, and it's less about the church and gospel, and it's more about culture. Is in general, and I would say this to any culture, and for me, right, that's my culture. That's what I grew up in. And even if you're not a member here in Utah, it's still a huge part of culture.
Sure.
And so finding somebody that lives and believes in the same culture, that is it's just going to make it that much easier.
Yeah.
So cultural fit for them. And for us, that's active believing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The second thing is finding a high achiever, finding the people that are going to achieve no matter what. Because I guarantee when the chips are low, and they're going to be low because we all stink at that age in the 20s to figure out what we want to do, they're going to figure something else out and achieve and achieve and achieve and achieve. And it's progression more than achievement. They're going to progress through life and figure things out. And then the third one is because someone actually, this is something that just came up over the last week. So in LDS culture, we do something called Trek. And and for those, I know you know what it is, but for those that see the podcast that might not know what it is, so we reenact over a couple day period what LDS pioneers went through in the 1800s. My wife, actually, her fifth great grandma was a convert and is known to have traveled the longest as a pioneer to get to the Salt Lake Valley. And so she has a direct relationship with this, but we reenact that pioneer journey. And so we trek along these, we camp at night, and we have these hand carts that we pull, and then, there's families. So you get together with this mom, pa, which is an adult couple, and then they kind of assign families, and you get to a little sliver of what it must have been like for them, a little 1/1000th of what they must have gone through.
Yeah.
And so on this trek, you have a ton of time to talk to people and get some really cool insights. Yeah, and this just happened this last week, so it's fresh on my mind. It was an amazing experience. And I said that specific thing because I was talking about my daughters and planning for upcoming events. And I told them, the high achiever part. And one of the ladies was like, look, I just want to add something to this. She's like, I've dated those high achievers a lot. And if I could add something to it, I would add that they have the high achiever, but they also are focused on the happiness of the other person. Because there's oftentimes those high achievers are only focused on themselves. And so finding that diamond in the rough that is a high achiever, but is also open to assisting with the spouse would be my third one. There's all these other things. You got to be attracted to them. And I think this one that I just said, take care of you, that type of stuff. You got to have that love, all that. But outside of that, those are my three things.
See, it's funny with me. We were kind of talking about this earlier. Like, do you want your kids to get married young? Do you want them to get married older? You know? And I'm pretty not staunch, but I'm like, to me, I'm like, if you girls can find someone, or even my son, right? Like, if you can find someone young and grow together, best case scenario.
Oh yeah,
just low probability.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't come without problems. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We both know we were both married really young.
Yeah.
Right? But you also look at our marriages now, and it's like they work a lot of it just because when we were young and dumb and didn't know any better, we just kind of figured it out.
We went through those struggles. In fact, I love that you say that, because there's a study that came out, and I think it's in the Deseret News, where it talks about the couples that get married young, which is kind of early 20s. They get married a little bit older in the late 20s, or they get married later in the early 30s to late 30s. And if I'm not mistaken, the ones that get married the youngest were the ones that stay together the longest. And one of the reasons that they said, or what they think it is because they do struggle together, and they create those bonds of struggling before they make it. Yeah. And so they have to figure out who they are and who they're going to be in those tough times. And it's a lot easier when life is good to know each other when you already went through the tough times than getting married in the easy times and then having to figure out later what happens in the tough times. And so, my response to you said you would love them to get married earlier. And I said a little bit later. And I'm by little bit, and it's right in LDS culture, a little bit later is a couple years. Yeah. In general culture, it's in the 30s. Yeah. But I just want my kids to, and I think this is every parent. We just want them to find the person that they're going to be happiest with.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that if you're willing to work on it, you can marry almost anybody.
Yeah.
But the level of happiness is going to change. You can marry almost anybody and stay together.
Yeah.
But the question is, how happy are you going to be?
Yeah.
Studies show that arranged marriages have a higher probability of staying together long term than us choosing our own spouse. Why is that? And the reason they believe that is because they go into marriage understanding that it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. We've got to figure out how to work together. And I think those younger marriages, they go into it knowing, or I hope they go into it knowing that it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Our first 2 years, like I said, they were difficult.
Yeah.
And and on my side, I don't know about my wife. I can't ever talk for her, but for my side, I never once thought about divorce. It was just, how do we get through this? How do we fix this? How do we come to a point where we both are moving in the same direction? The traction was always there. And here's one of the awesome things about marriage is I feel like I'm more attracted to my wife today than I was when we got married. And I don't know how that is. And I think it's just because this constant growth with both of us, but it's cool.
Well, I think, because I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think what the main contributing factor to that is you have more respect for her. Now people think respect is like an on-off button, right? You either have respect or you don't have respect. And it's not true. It's a spectrum like everything else, right? I think we get married young, then we watch these women like have kids and deal with us and deal with life and have hard stuff happen to them. And you just like gain more and more respect for them over the years, right? And it's also on the flip side, right? Like I think that people, when their marriages blow apart, I think what happens is they stop respecting each other, right? Especially if there's like cheating, that's easy to see, right? Like, oh, he cheated, so that's disrespectful, or she cheated, that's disrespectful, then that thing blows up if they can't go back to that homeostasis of respect. Also on the financial side of it, right? Where most marriages actually blow up, right? And that's that they don't have that respect for each other to trust each other with money or whatever they're doing, or to make enough, or they have unrealistic expectations. And then that respect just goes away. And I think it's almost like any relationship, right? Once you stop respecting the person, like where do you go from there?
Yeah.
It's just hard.
And thankfully you talk about the financial side, which is, like you said, I think the statistics show most arguments are financially focused. Yeah. She's been awesome as an entrepreneur. So I'm an entrepreneur. I've been on my own since 2008 as an entrepreneur. And we've had some high highs and some super low lows. Yeah. And through it all, I mean, low lows as in houses in foreclosure, cars getting repoed, negative balance in the bank account, unable to pay for food, that type of stuff. So as low as you can get. And I'll rewind a bit and tell you how we got to this point. So in fact, this is a good progression of life. So my background's in technology. 14 years old, I started I talked a little bit about my three loves in life: sports, girls, and then technology. When I was 14, we got the internet, and it was just me and my dad living together at that time. And he had just gotten out of, he had just been in a divorce. And so his way of coping with that divorce was working. He worked for Boeing, which was McDonnell Douglas at the time. Super hard worker. My dad's a stud, but he was gone. And I don't mind. I'd come home from football practice and I'd get on the computer and we got the internet. And that first month, I went way over. So internet at that time, it was dial-up. And we didn't have unlimited internet. We had a certain number of minutes we could have each month.
Right.
So that first month I went way over. It was like $100 over. And my dad came back and he's like, if you do this again, we're getting rid of the internet. And I've never taken crack, but that's what that was the internet for me. Right. And it was crack. And I said, there's no way we can do this. And I had some pretty good skills in programming at the time. And so I thought, let's see if I can work my way into this and figure this out. And so I bought this huge big Visual Basic book, Visual Basic 2.0. And the first program I wrote was a program to get free internet, free Prodigy. Prodigy was the company. It was like AOL at the time. And so I hacked, basically I found a vulnerability. I hacked this company to figure out how I could get free internet. And I wrote a program to get free internet.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was so much fun. I loved the interaction of trying to figure out vulnerabilities. I loved being on these little chat rooms with supposed little hackers. We were probably all 14-year-olds, all like talking to each other about all this stuff. But I fell in love with the vulnerability side of technology and figuring out how I could exploit those vulnerabilities. Fast forward into my 20s, I got a position at BYU, helping to run one of the largest cybersecurity departments at BYU. And then I would move on to mechanical engineering, running technology for mechanical engineering over there. And about 2007, I went to this like real estate rah-rah thing. This guy got up and was like, I made tens of millions of dollars doing real estate and you can too. And I'm like, I'm better than this guy. I can make more than him. And so I started a real estate investment company. Actually, it was like 2006. And great, easiest time ever to start a real estate investment company. If you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan on a property. The first property I ever did, I made almost double what I made at a full-time job at BYU.
Yeah.
And so I left BYU after about a year of doing real estate and just started doing real estate. And life was good. Life was really good. I'm 20 something. I'm making overall millions of dollars. I'm cashing $250,000 checks, $500,000 checks. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm the man. I'm in my late 20s and I'm killing it. And I thought I was the man. And then 2007, 2008 came along and the market crashed and we got caught holding the bag with a bunch of properties. And then I went for my house in foreclosure. My car's getting repoed and not being able to afford anything. And, you see a lot when life is good, you have a lot of friends. And when life is bad, you don't have any friends. And you see who your friends really are because they're with you in both seasons. Yeah. And in reality, that's what it is. You got these seasons of highs and lows. And, she was amazing. My wife. She was just able to stretch $1. She never came down on me. She had a lot of leeway to be really angry at me for stupid decisions that cost us financially. She was never that. In fact, she was always working to get us. So that's one of those things. And then that was when I'm like, okay, let's go all in back in on technology and have since been 100% in on the cybersecurity side and technology side.
Is that what your current company does?
Heroic? Yeah. So my current company is heroic.com. It's Heroic Cybersecurity. And we help protect companies and people against hackers. And me starting as a teenage hacker, in the industry, it really takes somebody that understands the ins and outs of it to be able to help better protect an organization. And that's what we do. So our mission is to protect humanity from the future of advanced cyber threats. And we help protect large organizations, healthcare companies, hospitals, things like that. And
so what did it take to start that company?
Yeah. So going back to what we were talking about before, so that real estate company collapsed and I needed to go back to my roots, which is technology. And I started a company called Lancera. And Lancera, we got to about 110 employees. We were doing really well. And there was another company that I wanted to start. So we spun off another company. It was called Box Support. And so we ran the two together. And Box Support, it was crazy. If you combine those two, within 14 months of starting, we hired over 700 employees, 400 of those being here in Utah, 400 and something in Utah, and another 300 offshore. So combined between the two, about 700. And it was crazy. It was amazing. It was rapid growth. I once again got to the point where I felt like, in real estate, I didn't really feel like I had made it. With this company combined, I felt like I got to the point that I made it. 6 months into that spinoff, we had an offer in the mid 8 figures that I declined and said, no, I'm going to be making 9 figures in about 3 years. So why would I sell today? So life was good for a little period of time. Well, let's clarify. The accolades that I wanted to get, I was getting. We were growing massive at our peak. We were growing by 20 people a week. And I was getting all these things in news articles, and all people started becoming my friend out of nowhere. So as an entrepreneur, I was living the life that I wanted to live, and I could foresee the path that I wanted to get to. Yeah. I could foresee a 9-figure exit in 3 to 5 years. And so life was good again. And then we had another life-changing event on the business side where we used with our marketing. We spent almost 100% of our marketing dollars on Google ads. And Google is a kingmaker. They can make you a king and take away as soon as they make you. And so we were spending all of our money on marketing with Google because we hadn't found another channel that was as good. We had looked for other channels. We had started going down that path. The margins were never as good as Google. Yeah. So we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing with Google and marketing. And in 2015, they made a policy change on certain industries that could market with them. And they banned online tech support companies. Now, we felt like we're not an online tech support company. We're a cybersecurity company. We're helping people protect their computers. But they saw us as an online tech support company because to help protect that computer and to fix their problem, we had to log in remotely. And so they banned the whole industry. And we were one of the largest companies that got cut off. So on the heels of our largest day ever in sales, on the heels of hiring another 21 person hiring week, my VP of sales came in at like 5:31. He's like, hey, our marketing account is down. Do you know what's going on? And we had some issues if you market with Google, you always have little tiny issues that you always have to look at. And so I was like, let's look at it. It's down. Let's call my rep. Rep was like, I don't have any visibility into what's going on, which is weird. And so long story short, we never got that account back. And we went from literally 700 employees in a 14-month period, about 600 of them new in that 14-month period, to laying off the vast majority of those employees within 2 weeks of that time. And, it's crazy because 3 weeks prior, and almost exactly 3 weeks prior, I had gotten to the point where I'm like, I've made it. Right. I hadn't raised a penny of financing. This was all self-funded. We were making more than we were spending. We were hiring a ton of people. We had this awesome management team. It can always get better, but we had a really good management team. And I just saw that 9-figure exit in the coming. Yeah. And was like, I made it. And that's the worst thing to think. In business, you never want to feel like you've made it. It's the dumbest feeling to feel. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, never feel like you've made it. Even after an exit, don't feel like you've made it, because then, you take your head down. Now, that's not the reason why we got shut down. It was an industry-wide thing, but it was really humbling. For a couple years after that happened. So we laid off the majority of people. Worst day of my business life ever. In fact, I would say to date, it was probably the worst day of my life. I imagine there's something that I'm not thinking of that was worse than that. But to date, that was the worst day of my life, where I had to go before my team, hundreds of people, and say, as your leader, I have failed. And because of that, you're going to lose your livelihood right now. I have to let you go. Now, we did certain things to help ease that, where we kept our recruiter on and we tried to place everybody that we could. And we spent a lot more to help that. But horrible, horrible day. People were crying. I was crying. it was just a very tough time. And we reorganized into what today is Heroic. And but for about 2 years, I went to really this dark hole. That like I said, it goes back to life is good. You have all these friends. When life isn't good, you figure out who are your real friends. And so it took about 2 years to pull myself out of that hole. And I say pull myself, that's not the reality, for people to pull me out of the hole. Because I didn't do much. It was them kind of getting me out. Yeah. And then today, we have about 50 employees with Heroic today. We'll probably add another 50 this year, if not more. And even though our revenues are less than we had with 700, our net is 10x what we had with 700 employees.
Oh, wow.
Now most of that goes back into the company to continue to build and build and build and build. But we're in a good spot now. We're not out of the woods yet. We've got to grow. I feel like I'm fulfilling about 1% of my capacity. And so I've got a long ways to go to get to the point where I want to be. But at the end of the day, I think we're on the right path and we're doing some awesome things. And we have some amazing things that are coming up that I think I'll take it back to this. Our mission is to protect humanity from the future of advanced cyber threats. That today is AI. The greatest minds in the world today, the vast majority of the greatest minds in the world today, if they're talking about existential threats, AI is the top of that list.
Right.
And I feel it is our mission. Well, I don't feel it. It is our mission. It's our mission to protect against those things. That's what we do. At the end of the day, that's what we're building, is to protect against that specific threat.
How do you do that? Is that like through redundancies or hide and seek a little bit? Yeah.
So we've done a lot of studies into this, and we've tried to figure out what is the best way to protect against AI. The scary part about AI is when there's artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence that can think for its own and then do whatever. We don't really know what will happen. We think we know. And in any situation where you don't have the full picture, you're automatically going to go to the worst case scenario. So if we think into the future that AI, some artificial super intelligence comes alive and it just continues to grow and grow in knowledge and needs more energy. What we believe that the protection against that is other AIs to protect it. You need other security systems to protect against that. We believe that each person will inevitably have their own, they'll be connected with some device. We are today, actually. And that's this device. Today, we are connected with this device at all times. This is our brain. We use this. We connect with people. It's likely that we will integrate technology like that into our bodies. And we believe that each of these systems will have their own AI that's based on you and how you interact with technology, how you interact with people. So what we're building is a platform to allow that to happen. And today that platform is a cloud-based platform that connects with the different services that you use, that connects with your devices that you use, and learns how you interact with things, and can then block certain things if it's outside of this spectrum of normal activity. And so that's what we're building today, is that platform, so that if artificial superintelligence does happen, that you have your own personalized protection. So it can't be something like the antivirus of old that has a signature file. And if we find a new threat, then we add it to the signature file 2 days later. And if you just get lucky to have updated your antivirus, then it will block that. It can't be like that. It has to be thinking on its own and making determinations if something is a threat or not on its own. So that's the system that we're building today.
So do you still code?
I don't. No, okay. I can. I do look through code often, but I don't actually. I haven't committed any code to our system for a bit.
Yeah.
At least not our production systems. Like I'll code certain things on the side that I want for myself, but I don't commit it to our production environments. No, I hire a lot of smarter people than me on the coding side. I love coding, and I think in that type of I think in if thens, and I think in coding, if that makes any sense. But I don't do it anymore.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
Not necessarily the coding part. I do thoroughly enjoy the interaction with technology.
Yeah.
I think the research, the R&D side is most enjoyable for me. I spend most of my time on the management side. So managing our team, which is probably my least, I like that the least.
Yeah.
I love.
Because your title's CEO, right?
Yeah, I'm CEO. Yeah. So I'm CEO, I'm founder, and majority owner of the company.
Yeah.
But where I'm best at, and this is kind of an oxymoron. So the technology side, the future of technology and looking into that, the AI, cyber, all that type of stuff, just kind of understanding what's coming up, that side. I love that side. That'd probably be number one for me. Number two for me would be marketing and sales. Yeah. I love marketing and sales. I could just sit on phones all day talking to people about what we're building because it ties me back to what I love is that technology piece. When we go into a hospital, we have multiple hospitals that we protect. We take over everything, all cyber, IT, we run them on the technology side. And so on the sales, I'm just talking about the technology we're going to put in place. And then when we make the deal, then we actually put it in place. So I get to still be directly in the tech side. But yeah, tech and then sales and marketing. Management is probably like the 7th thing on the list. It's probably the lowest on the list. That's why. So we have an awesome COO, and he came from Dell, and he was with Motorola back in the day and Nortel, and very high level manager. And he's just a stud at operations. And he's the guy that really runs the operation side of the company.
Yeah.
And we just mix together over time. It's kind of like a marriage. We've learned how to work with each other. That's not to say we don't get in arguments, because even before coming, right before coming here, I won't say it was an argument, but it was a discussion.
Yeah. That's a very CEO thing to say.
Yeah.
We're just having discussions.
A heated discussion.
Yeah, but you want your guys to have an opinion too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Having a bunch of yes men's horrible.
Yeah. If they don't have an opinion, you don't respect them.
Yeah.
If they don't tell you what's up, if they don't look around the corner and see your blind spots, you're never going to respect them. If they're just like, yes, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the best part about being CEO?
I think it's a double-edged sword. This one that I'm going to say is being able to decide what you work on. That's a double-edged sword, because a CEO like me that's in a traditional ADD type CEO, you can get lost in the tasks rather than the bigger picture.
Yeah. So
oftentimes I'm getting lost in the minutia that I shouldn't be getting lost. In fact, one of our meetings, so we had a management meeting right before this, quarterly management meeting, and we were going all these things, and my guys are like, Chad, you got to hand this stuff off. You got to give us this stuff. Yeah. Stop doing this. It's not worth it. If you look at the value that somebody like a CEO provides, the hourly cost of that, I'm doing stuff that might make us dollars an hour. Yeah. And I should be focusing on the stuff that are making us thousands, tens of thousands of dollars an hour. And so, I do enjoy setting my own schedule and deciding what I get to do. Accolades. So I like to be recognized for stuff that we do. Now, I like to be recognized for legitimate stuff that we've done. I don't like to have people blow smoke up my butt for stuff that I haven't done. Oh, you're so smart. Oh, here's an interesting thing. When we were at our peak with the previous company, when we were at a peak, I heard a lot of, Chad's a genius. Anybody that knows me doesn't use those words, right? Chad's a genius. Those two words don't go together. That's not saying I don't think I'm smart or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a lot of freaking experience. I've been in cybersecurity 20 plus years. So I have a lot of experience. But I'm not a genius by any means. I work hard. I have really great people on my team. But that was one of the things that bothered me. Like, why didn't you guys say this before? Well, they didn't say it before because it wasn't true. So I don't necessarily like the fake accolades that come with being, but I do like being recognized for legitimate stuff that we do. Some of the most fulfilling and difficult things we do is protecting hospitals. Hospitals are very difficult because they have so many different systems. And each system requires a different amount of experience and protection and all that stuff. And it's very fulfilling being able to protect them. Scary as hell because literal lives are on the line. But when we get accolades for stuff like that, for actually doing legitimate stuff, I do thoroughly enjoy it. Yeah. I think the third thing, if I can add one more, is the connections I get to make. It's a lot easier for CEOs to make connections. Yeah. Right? People see a title and they think, oh, they must be special, which is totally not true. There's nothing more special about me than anybody else that works at the same level. But it's easier. It's just easier. It's easier to make those connections, right? A beautiful woman is going to make connections easier than somebody that might be hiding their looks or their talents, that's walking down, that didn't do themselves up all nicely. Yeah. One of the reasons why I wear this stuff is I feel better and people treat me differently when I'm in it. And I first noticed it on airplanes where I would dress normally and I'd sit on an airplane, I'd get zero extra benefit out of it. And when I started dressing like this and getting on airplanes, it's insane the level of the word's not attention, but respect that is automatically given. And so I see that as a benefit of being CEO, those connections. And I feel it's my job to connect with people. Yeah. My employees, potential customers, people that aren't. Like, my job is to have friends, is to build friendships, real friendships. And having that title helps me do that easier.
No, you're 100% right. It's kind of funny. I'm laughing a little bit when you're talking about being on a plane because I feel the same way as you. There's a certain way you can dress and people will definitely treat you better. The plane to me is like the one place I do not want to talk to people, bro. Like, I almost want to get a skull tattoo in my hand just so people are like, ugh. You know what I mean? And I used to not be that way. I used to talk all the time with people, right? Yeah. And then I got caught on a flight from New York back to Salt Lake with this chick that was pissed I was Mormon. Yeah. Right? I was like talking to her. She's like, how can you believe this? How can you believe this? And like, from being on a LDS mission and then someone who's not a member now, right? I was a member back then, right? And just her like talking all this nonsense, right? Like, do you have horns? I mean, just the ridiculous shit from like the 1800s, right? My problem is, and I don't say this enough to people, but like, there's a point where people tell me they're stupid. Yeah. And I never let them know I know. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I probably said like 10 things today that triggered the stupid flag for you.
Well, but it's more like the social stuff, right? Like not reading the room. Yeah. Right. Like not understanding the person you're talking to. Yeah. Like there was so many times I was like, well, that's fine. Well, what else do you do? You know what I mean? I'm pulling off this conversation as hard as I can. I have never given a shit what religion people are. Yeah. Even when I was a Mormon missionary, it was kind of like, I'm out here doing what I'm doing, but you out? Okay, see ya. Yeah. You know what I mean? Next. And gosh, dude, just being on this plane with this chick, I was like, dude, I am sick of talking to people on here. And then there's been a few other times, right, where like, because now it's hard for me to explain what I do for a job, right? I normally just tell people I work in a manufacturing plant, but it's like, there's just so many different things I do, right? Yeah. And I just don't want to explain it to people. Why do you do this? How do you do this? Oh, then they hear that I do NBA courts and it's like, the sky opens up and like, and I'm kind of like, guys, I don't know how to explain this. This is like so basic for me. Yeah. Like they send their design in, we print the templates, paint it all, make it look amazing, ship it over there. And then we try and get paid. Like that's all this is, you know? And I'm currently working on a deal with the NBA, right, to hopefully do all their courts. Right?
Oh, wow.
We'll see. I mean, it's
That'd
still
be
pending.
amazing.
Might be done by the time this comes out. Probably not.
Yeah.
But and we've been working on it for 18 months. It's not like it's brand new, right? And people are always like, dude, you're super excited for that? And I'm like, no. I'm like, dude, I talk about this so much, and it's like always on my board, and there's always strategy behind it, and there's all these things we've done to prepare for it. And like we've even bought companies to prepare for this, and merged and acquired and done all this stuff kind of behind the scenes, right? To build this powerhouse company that the NBA basically can't not hire us.
Yeah.
We touch between us and another company who we're trying to acquire like 65% of all the courts.
Holy cow.
And so you're basically just saying like, we do this anyways, make us the exclusive.
Yeah.
Right. And I just tell people, I'm like, dude, as soon as this actually happens, we'll go to dinner, we'll celebrate. I'll eat an expensive steak that I could have made better at my house.
Yeah.
And then the next day it's just back to taking orders, back to fulfilling, back to invoicing, back to collecting. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just that basic stuff. And I think, I talked about this in the last Ludus, right? Where I was kind of like, it's you're alone at the top a little bit, right? And then I even hate saying that because being at the top, I actually don't treat my employees that way. And I don't view them that way either. I always view them like, we're always in the same team. Like we're always doing the same things. We just have different roles. And like, yeah, of course, being the owner of the company, like you're the guy at the top, but like, making that culture not exist like that is what I really, really like inside of, all the companies that I'm involved in. Do you guys have the same thing with your employees?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we had a discussion about this. We actually did have a discussion about this being on top because one of the hardest things for me to learn as a CEO was most of your employees don't see you as a friend. Whereas and I'll speak for myself, whereas I see employees and I see them as an employee and I see them as a friend. Not all of them are friends. They're all my employees, but not all of them are my friends. But I do try to make real friend relationships. Yeah. One of the things that I learned when we started laying people off, especially at that time, was most of them see you as an employee-employer relationship. Yeah. They think that friend relationship is part of that. And so when there is a cut in the company, whereas they leave, for whatever reason, there's usually a separation of friendship also. And that was really hard for me. Now, and I'll add a caveat. Most of the people that have left, I've still maintained a really good relationship, and I still try to. Yeah. In fact, I've had some people in the company like, why are you reaching out to that guy? And I'm like, well, because he's my friend. And so it's really hard for most people to separate employee relationship with a friend relationship. I try to look at everybody that way. But it's painful when you think you have a friend and for whatever reason they exit the company and you realize, oh, they were never your friend. It was just... So when you said it's hard being at the top, that's what I heard. I don't know if that's what you were feeling.
I feel it's more of not really, even though I agree with what you're saying there, I mean, I even had a mission buddy that's just worked for me for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. And when he exited the business, dude, radio silent, never talked to him again. I mean, it's just, and who knows? I mean, the dude, I guess a couple of weeks later, he called me and told me how much he loved me and all this kind of stuff, and which kind of is just pandering, right? Yeah. But when I was talking about it, it was more like I make so many high level decisions that I don't really have an advisor. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I think like I love going and talking to the employees every day. I joke around with all of them. I always say hi to everybody when I come in the room, all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Just keep those relationships. And it's not that I'm like consciously doing it or like tasking it off. It's just me. That's just what I do. Right. Right. I just kind of connect
who
people.
You are.
Yeah.
It's why people connect with you because they just feel comfortable with you.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm pretty honest, I'm just like, hey, I mean, it's funny with me too. I even tell people like, hey bro, I'm not in the mood to talk today, maybe tomorrow. And they're just like, okay, Mark, you know what I mean? Cause then when I am engaged, I'm engaged. And when I'm not, it just keeps like, it's almost like this level of honesty that just kind of like rolls through my life, which is good. But the other hard part is though, when you're looking to acquire a company or like merge something, it's hard because you can ask employees stuff, right? And they're very selfish with their answers most of the time, right? Yeah. So if I'm like, hey, I'm going to acquire this company, how do you think it would fit into the company? Oh, we wouldn't need to do that. We don't need an accounting, It's like, dude, are you just protecting your job? Like, don't be dumb. You're already in the mothership.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let's bring this company in. We're firing them, not you.
Yeah.
You know, I need like good advice.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I mean, even when I've had boards, like I don't have none of my companies have boards.
Yeah.
Now, I'm on some boards for companies I'm invested in, but like mine don't have them, which is funny, right? Because I preach that you should have one, especially when you invest, right? But I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of high-end things that I just have to make decisions on. And, you know, I've lost and mostly won, but.
Do you have any high-level, not people that are on your board, but advisors? Who do you turn to when you have a business? Do you have a couple core people that when you're having a business question?
Nope.
I highly recommend it. And here's the reason why, because I've got a couple core guys, and these are guys that have done that have worked with $1 billion companies. They've been at one time, one of these guys, the company that he was CEO of, and people on the podcast, if you watch it, they may know who this is, but he's a local guy. And his company was worth more than Boeing at one time.
Wow.
They were in the same area as Boeing. He's worth more than Boeing. And I use him once every couple years.
Yeah.
But when I use him, the value that he provides is worth sometimes millions of dollars. One of the time that I'm thinking of millions of dollars. Another time, you know, he saved me from how to move forward on a lawsuit. He saved me from it. And so finding those guys that are higher level than you've ever achieved is so beneficial. And that's not to say you have to find those guys that are high level. I've got another guy that I talk with almost on a weekly basis. And he usually sends me questions. And for recently I asked him a question. It was interesting. And he said, "Hey, I really appreciate you asking me." Yeah. Because I think it showed that I respected his communication, and I always have, but I haven't shown it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, having certain guys in your, well, I think you do have some of those guys. Somebody like Nick, right? I guarantee you can go, if you have a business thing, he's got some in whatever aspect of business. He might not know anything about building sport courts, but there's other things that he may have some really good insight. So I highly recommend them. They've saved me. There's certain people that have saved me millions and millions of dollars. And, and
I guess if I'm being, if we get more in the micro instead of the macro, my attorney, Doug Shumway, he does advise me.
Okay.
So especially on business structure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the few guys that I do that with, but not all. I do ask his opinion, but I think a lot of the core tenant stuff that I do, I don't really have anyone. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but I agree with you. It'd be good to find a few guys in that world. I think what I do, and this is probably bad, but the problem is, and I've kind of tried to approach some of these guys in the past. Then when I talk to them, I realize I'm like, you just don't know what I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
they don't understand fully what the business.
Because if it's like tax strategy, I have, two CPAs that work for me in a third party.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm my guys, make this work so I don't pay tax. Like there's not much of a discussion to have out of that. Right. And so when it comes to like full on advisors, like do this, do that, do that, do this, like we should acquire this company and this will fit this way. And, this is the big overall strategy. I actually think sometimes it overwhelms people too. Because when you start talking big numbers, I mean, people are like, you're talking 10, 11 digits. It's like, we got some stuff going on here, Yeah. And so I don't know. It's interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grateful that I've been able to build some awesome people around me, and it's a little bit different. Sport court is super, super niche.
Yeah.
Where I'm in cyber, which is, although it is a niche, it's a huge niche.
Yeah.
So I can find people that know exactly what I'm going through.
Right.
That have already been through it, so I can lean on them. So I guess it's a little bit easier when it's more broad. But
it's also funny too. Like one thing I've learned is you start finding certain people and they're just hammers for the nails they know how to hit. Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, Like sometimes I get with people and they just go on and on and on and on and on about how amazing real estate is.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, you guys have never touched venture or private equity because it's just not the same. Right? Your company, right? Yeah. You literally, you could put up a couple $1 million into marketing one day right?
Yeah.
And blow the top and bottom line up and then sell the thing for a freaking massive multiple.
Yeah.
And it does take time and there's some skill to that. Don't get me wrong. So
Yeah.
like, you just do it and it happens, right? But
Right.
like the returns you can get in a private business destroy any other returns in any investment vehicle.
Yeah.
It's not even close. And so
Agreed.
I don't know. I mean, I've had these things like, well, should we do this? And they're like, oh, we should buy some real estate. I mean, I've had partners that have me, I'm in all these stupid real estate deals now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why did I agree to do this? Like, I knew this was a bad idea. Why I should just go with what I think.
I'll give you a good example of that. And I want to say, I know you do a lot more, and I use the term sport courts, and I don't know if that's a bad word in your industry or not.
No, it's like 3 or 4% of what I do.
And I know you do a heck of a lot more than that, right? I'm just using that for examples.
Yeah.
But what was the thing we were just talking about?
Bad real estate deals.
Bad real estate deals.
That's what I was yapping about.
So my buddy is this is kind of on the same level, but my best friend growing up in high school, he's one of the partners in a real estate investment firm, and they do self-storage. Self-storage is amazing. We're looking to get into self-storage at some level. But I was looking through the numbers, and with self-storage, you go out and you pay a lot of money for these buildings. And what do you get for paying that money? You get to rent certain doors. So you pay a ton of money to be able to rent 200 doors.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at my software that we're building, our cloud-based software. You can buy it online, and we make roughly the same amount of each door, but I have an unlimited amount of doors that I can sell with software.
Yeah.
Where he has to pay, the minimum he pays is $500,000. Let's say if he's buying small ones, which these guys, they're building huge ones all over the country, and they only buy big ones. But let's say if they were going to get the minimum to be able to rent 200 doors out, he's paying $500,000 just to have the opportunity to rent those doors out. Now, I get the whole increase in value with real estate and all that type of stuff, but he has to pay $500,000 just to be able to get 200 clients every single month.
Right.
Whereas I build this software and I can get 2 million clients if we're really good.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's marketing and all that stuff, but I have no limit. And I'm looking at the dollars and I'm like, why would I now we're still going to do this. Why would I put my money into self-storage if I just make this software and I have an unlimited amount of things that I can basically rent out, an unlimited amount of doors. Yeah. So I do love real estate. I couldn't talk about loving real estate for more than a half an hour or something like that. Yeah. But I do agree on the investment side as a VC or something that it's so about 10 years ago, 2008, when our real estate investment firm crashed and I was starting the services side, the cybersecurity services, we came across an opportunity to buy a high-end baby good company. So high-end baby, like $1,000 strollers, that type of stuff. It's called Bear Babies. And they had just gone bankrupt. And they had gone bankrupt because of pay-per-click. They were paying too much in pay-per-click. Just a bunch of...
Did they have a brick and mortar?
No, they never had a brick and mortar. Oh, okay. They were thinking about a brick and mortar, but they never had a brick and mortar. So we acquired this bankrupt company. And it was doing millions in revenues. And and when we acquired that, then we found it was like 2008, all these different industries started dying. And one of those was high-end baby goods. So there's this another company that came out, it was called Right Start. This company had over 100 million investment. They were doing, I can't remember the numbers, but let's say it's 70 million a year in revenues. Over 100 million investment, 70 million revenues. They had just merged two companies together, Right Start and this other company is called Baby Style. And they had two management teams, and something happened where the investment firm didn't fire one of the management teams, or they didn't consolidate. And they had these two teams that were just infighting, and they had this great, both of them had great individual companies, but when they combined them and didn't consolidate, it killed their company. So 100 plus million investment, 70 million in revenues, goes to bankruptcy. We were one of the investment firms that were like, hey, we're going to buy this. I already bought Bear Babies, or I already acquired the assets of Bear Babies. We want to acquire these. Guess how much, just make up a number, right? I hate this game of make this up, but I'm going to make you play this game. So 70 million in revenues a year. They were losing money at this time. They had brick and mortar shops all over the country. If you closed about 11 of them, you get back to profitability. Over 100 million in investment. What do you think that went for in bankruptcy court?
Oh, hell.
To acquire all the assets, everything, all the revenues, all the stores,
all their inventory and everything.
The inventory was like 30 million in inventory. What do you think it cost to acquire that?
I know it's going to be low. Let's just say 18 million.
Yeah, it was $2.6 million.
2.6?
It was $2.6 million. Yeah.
Why?
If my memory, well, you had to, there's a couple of things. You had to increase inventory. You had to do all these different things. You had to shut down so it's 2.6, but you had to put another $20 million in to make it work. But the cost on that blew my mind and opened my mind up to the opportunities out there, how many opportunities there are out there. This is just one random company in the world that most people had never heard of before. That's doing amazing revenues, has a ton of, like Christy Brinkley was one of the first spokespeople for this company. And, or no, not Christy Brinkley. Who was the main supermodel of our era?
Cindy Crawford.
Cindy Crawford was the spokesperson of this company when they launched.
Yeah.
Right. And you have all that media that's associated with that. And they go for just a small amount. I agree with you. I think investment funds, after we fulfill our mission with Heroic, after we do that, I'll always be in cybersecurity. But I think my next thing after, not that I'm focusing on this or anything, but it will definitely be in funds, in managing, as a VC or as a hedge fund or as whatever.
That's where I spend most of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be in that. I think that's the most compelling. And as for somebody like me that has ADD and wants to touch 20 different things instead of just focus on one thing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Like underwriting deals, raising money for deals. It's a lot of fun. So
raising, I have beautiful, I told you about my daughters. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And not only are they beautiful, they're crazy smart and hard workers. And I think they would be the greatest fundraisers in the world. Yeah. You take two stunning, athletic, super smart girls and you put them into the fund world, sky's the limit.
Oh, it'd be the best job. That's actually where I want all my kids to go into, is in the fund world. So and they most likely will, because I'm just going to bake them into that.
Yeah.
My kid, we homeschool our kids. Yeah. And we talk net worth a lot. Yeah. They all have stock portfolios. Like it's kind of fun. How's
that been? Homeschooling kids.
It's amazing.
What are the biggest takeaways from that?
You control the curriculum. A lot of individual attention, obviously. So my wife's a teacher, so there's three of them. They do a lot of extracurriculars. So they go to like a science thing, they go to an art thing. Super interactive, very high level, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They're outpacing their peers by a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot. It's funny. I've had people in my life, like they find out my kids are homeschooled and then they want to quiz them. Mm-hmm. You know, and then my kids just destroy them. See how smart
you really are.
Yeah. Like it's funny watching my kids just wax people like in Trivial Pursuit. Yeah. Like just in history. Like it's unbelievable. My kids know mythology like you wouldn't believe. Yeah. And my wife, even though she doesn't think this, which is sad for her, but you know, she actually makes it a lot of fun. So my kids get a little obsessed with things, right? Like little kids do, like we do, right? Yeah. So my oldest daughter just got obsessed with mythology, right? Well, the other two look up to her like she's their hero. In fact, my son on the podcast with him said that Brea is his hero. Awesome. Right? So then they all jump into that, right? Yeah. Well, you know, mythology runs right through history. Yeah. Right. So you go from Norse to Egyptian, you know, to Greek. And so then you start applying like religion into there, right? So they understand the religion, right? And religion's great to understand because then they understand culture, right? So then you have history, religion, culture, mythology, and it all just kind of flows down, you know? Then they start really getting into it, right? And then it's like, well, why do we have computers? Why does technology advance? And they just have this natural progression through like the curiosity of just the world, you know? My kids they'll all pretty much graduate high school. Well, they're going to go to the University of Utah's concurrent enrollment program when they turn 16. So they're sophomore year. Now that's not in high school. That's actually at the U. So it's actually through the University of Utah. The first 2 years are
do they go or is that
first
online?
2 years are completely online.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's $5 a credit.
Yeah.
So my kids will graduate high school they could actually have a bachelor's or they could be real close to a bachelor's, maybe a semester or two to finish. Or if they just go on their pace, and I'm actually going to leave it up to them because I also believe they need a childhood, right? But yeah, I mean, they'll probably take a couple classes. Worst case scenario, they're getting applied associates.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not really a big college guy. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this, but I think the ROI is horrific.
Yeah.
So being an investor, right? It's like, you know.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go there and have the experience, and I'm not saying a degree is a bad thing per se, right? But yeah, if you go rack up $90,000 of debt on a lesbian dance certificate, you know, you in trouble, right? You know, like even marketing, man. All these guys with business marketing, I'm like, get out of that.
Yeah.
That is the most outdated crap.
Just go do it for somebody right now and get paid for it.
Exactly.
And you're going to learn more in 6 months than you will in 3 years there.
Yeah. See, that's really what I want my kids to do. I want them to be highly educated. I don't care about the accolades, and I want to place them in things that they want to do.
Yeah.
So
the question coming from a non-homeschooled family, and we love the idea of homeschool. There's 3 things that would set us back. My wife wouldn't want to do it. She'd be amazing at doing it. That'd be a big deal. Yeah. But that's hard. The second one is, how do you get, and I'll ask all 3 and let you go. But the second one is the interaction with other kids. How do you get that social? Because as important it is to get the educational, there's a social is a huge piece to that. Yeah. And then the third one is sports. We're a sport family. We love sports. Yeah. How do you kind of solve those 3 of, obviously the first one your spouse just wants
the first one my wife wants to do it. So that's easy, right? Second one was, what was the second one?
So the second one is the interaction with other people.
Interaction with other kids. Yeah. Yeah. So that is, that's really easy. They just have their friends, they have their neighborhood friends, they have cousins. And here's the trade-off with that, right? When I have them in homeschool, you can keep them innocent for longer, way innocent, right? Which I don't have a problem with. I assume one day I'm going to pop a bubble and walk each one of my kids through it and be like, surprise is what the world's really like. Yeah. And if that happens at 20, great. They'll be more prepared for it. They do interact with adults more. And I think that's a fantastic thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? My kids will look an adult in the eye. They talk to adults like peers. They're still very respectful. They understand the hierarchy that they have. Yeah. But they're very comfortable doing that, right? I don't have the little kids that like won't say hi to you or shy, or, you know what I mean? It's actually a thing I think is really bad to do. I think your kids need to be able to talk to adults. Yeah. Right? And then just the extracurricular activities, right? So when they go to like these science classes and when they go to like these art classes, they have peers in there, and then they get to interact. Sports thing's really easy. You just put them in sports. So they're always associated with a school.
Okay. So for example, they get into high school and your girl wants to do cheer. You just put them in.
Yep. She just tries out. Like
she just tries out so they can do that. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So they can still be a part of high school sports, but they don't have to be in the high. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're open enrollment too, so I can put them in any school I want, technically. So I don't know if my kids are athletic, but they're also small. So like I'm not, like my son, right? He loves football. I literally just signed him up this week for like this next season. Last season was the first time he's ever played. He's 11. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, I don't want, like, unless he is some fantastic athlete. Yeah. I don't want him to play football at a high level because you're just going to blow your body apart. Right.
You're just going to kill yourself.
It is what it is. Yeah. Right? And so, but I'm very concerned with my kids. That's another thing, right? Begin with the end in mind. I'm very concerned that my kids can function in this world without me, be successful financially, and be successful in relationships. Yeah. Outside of that, I don't really care, right? My kids they all play piano, right? They all my girls used to be on the swim team. My oldest daughter was on the Junior Olympic swim team for a while, and she wanted to quit because she wants to make movies. Wow. All right, fair enough. So I made her go through.
How old is your oldest girl? 13?
13.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just kind of let it ride, man. We do kind of do it by the seat of our pants. I do have a very clear goal at the end of this, with them, like even with their stock portfolios, right? Like I teach them how these things grow. And then when they make money, I make them put money into it. Yeah. Right. Then as we grow these things, I'm going to, get them into a couple duplexes when they turn 18. Right. And I hope those tenants beat the shit out of them. So they're just like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. Right. But it's like, no, I want you to learn how to do these things by just throwing you in the middle of it. Yeah. I think it'd be kind of funny, right? To be 18 and get a phone call from a tenant, the microwave's broken. Yeah. Don't look at me. Go fix it.
And that's how you learn. Yeah. That's how we learned.
Exactly. Right? Whether you want to know it, whether you go to school or not, you still got to go through the hard knocks. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then here's the thing. I feel like I got to put this out there too to people. If homeschool's not for you and your family, that's fine. Yeah. It doesn't change the way that I feel about homeschool or the truth about homeschool or the truth about public school. Like there's plenty of kids that are going to live wonderful lives going to public school. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's about the individual really taking advantage of what opportunities they have in front of them. And we're just fortunate enough to do homeschool. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So 1 out of 10, what would you rate homeschool?
10.
10?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I think in this day and age, if you don't think about homeschooling your kid, right, then maybe it just depends. It just depends on what culture, because you talked a lot about that progression with culture being in there, mythology and all that stuff. And so it's just, what do we teach our kids? Because if we don't do it, I guarantee everybody else is going to do it, and they are doing it.
And here's the problem with public school. Public school is babysitting. Mm-hmm. It's been babysitting since probably the 60s, right? With like the before school programs and the after school programs, and this is great for society, quite frankly, right? If you're a single mom or something, you got to go to work, you can drop your kid off at like 5:45 and you don't have to pick him up until like 5:15 or whatever their county or the school district's doing, right? Now, the rest of the day, right? I mean, these kids are at school for what, 7.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah, it seems like 2, but yeah. I don't know. I work from home. So it's they come home and I'm like, holy cow, how long were you at school? Jeez.
Yeah. Well, with us, so we have our kids in school for 3 hours.
Okay.
Right. So they're in school for about 3 hours. We go at their own pace so you can accelerate them really, really quickly. That's another thing too, right? So if your kid starts really accelerating in reading, you just keep on bumping up their level, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure both my older kids read it. I know for a fact a junior high level, if not a high school. My oldest daughter is at a high school level. I just don't know which one she's at because I let Michelle kind of do her thing. But if they really latch onto something, you just run down the road with them as fast as you can. Math, whatever, pick a subject. And that's why they know history and religion and mythology so well, is because they just loved it, And we would watch like Percy Jackson movies, right? And we'd watch there's a whole bunch of mythology movies, Shown a couple highlights from 300. Have not let them watch the whole show by any stretch of the imagination. But they kind of like it, You get these real people and kids are so thirsty to learn.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I used to teach American exceptionalism, was what I called it, right?
Yeah.
So we went over the citizenship questions and why America's the greatest and that kind of stuff. And it's fun. It's fun for them to kind of get that perspective. But I always say to them too, I'm like, hey, you guys get to pick whatever you want.
Yeah.
We're just teaching you as much as you can. You can learn whatever you want. You guys can, one day you're going to choose. You're going to go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So.
What's the hardest part of homeschooling?
My wife feeling inadequate.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous. But that's the way she feels sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on her, right? I mean, she was a very high performer. She's very academic, right? She's very physically fit. She's won fitness competitions. I mean, she is a very high performer.
Yeah.
And so if she feels like the day's not productive with them, and that happens 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, which is never actually true because, but she just starts feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And here's our rule, right? I've always said to her, and she's the one that volunteered for this. We had our kids in public school till COVID.
Yeah.
Right. I just said, hey, if it's too much, put them back in school.
Yeah.
I don't care if that's tomorrow. This is your life. This is my life. This is their life. We're in control of their lives. If this is too much, put them back, And then she realizes, and I'm like, babe, listen, if our son is in an elementary school class of 35 kids, that teacher is talking to him maybe 5 to 10 minutes every day. That's the only individualized he's getting. So even if you taught school today for an hour and then it was just too much, and you sent him out to play or something like that, 5 times as much as he was going to get being in school.
Yeah. And that 5 times or 3 times that teacher is talking, probably 2 of those times are to discipline them. Like, hey, get back to what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And public school's dumbed down.
Right.
It's the weakest link mentality.
They got to move at the pace of the weakest link.
Yeah.
I'm going to shout out to the great women in our lives. So my mom, right before we came here, so I had that meeting with our management team. And then we got a text that my mom had just fallen off a ladder. My mom lives 7 houses down from me.
Oh, okay.
And she paints, she likes to paint on the side. She was painting somebody's garage door and she was on the ladder and just fell off and fell on her face. And so I was like, okay, meeting over, let's go and see how she is.
Yeah.
And, we get there and she's got this big bump on her eye right here and a cut on her nose and her elbows all cut up. And I was like, why didn't you just call us? Because it was a couple doors down from where I live.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just call us to help you out? And she said, well, I didn't want you guys to like break your meeting. I didn't want to bother you guys because I fell. And it's like, are you serious, Mom? Of all the things in the world, none of that matter. You're injured. You're like 60 something and you're injured. Like that's what like that merits you calling us to come and help you.
Yeah.
But she was so afraid that she would mess up our stuff because she just got injured. She didn't even tell the homeowner. She didn't tell anybody. She was so afraid the homeowner was going to come out, and she just got up, walked home, and then sent a text message like, "Hey, this just happened."
Yeah.
Like, wow. Because I guarantee if I fell off of a ladder, I'm going to text about 10 different people.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them up and tell them, where she's just like, "No, don't tell anybody about it." It's
Now, women are tough, dude.
Yeah.
They're super tough.
Yeah. She's kudos, shout out to my mom. She's an amazing person.
Yeah.
She's it's because it's fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
Her doing that.
Yeah.
She's always been so loving, so caring, worried about what other people their needs more than anybody else's needs, more than her own needs.
Yeah.
And she's a good human. She's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Cool,
Yeah, it's fresh on my mind, so I thought I'd throw it in. Your mom,
No, I love it, dude. I'm
Mom,
pretty
you're
sure
not
your
even going to watch this, but maybe someone will point to it. And
She'll watch this.
If anybody wants their garage doors painted,
Yeah.
contact me. I'll put them in touch with my mom.
Sounds good, dude. Well, bro, we've done about an hour and a half, man.
Yeah.
Knocked it out.
All right, so we're halfway there. We got another an hour and a half to go. No, I'm joking.
So, my friend, last couple minutes, dude, is all yours. I want your best advice.
Oh, man.
The Chad Bennett advice of the year.
Oh, gosh. I'm trying to think of something that will be impactful and not cliche. There's secrets in life. There's real secrets out there that the world doesn't normally see. And I've been on a path to find what those are. And I'll tell you a couple. And most might not consider these secrets, but I really believe that these are like keys in life. One of those is extreme ownership. There's a book out there called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Awesome book, highly recommended. But as I read business books, that's my favorite thing to do is read business, or favorite thing, one of my favorite things. And all these high level business books all talk about this concept of extreme ownership, which is taking control of your life and realizing that most things, and I want to have a caveat before I go down this path, which is, right, there's things outside of us that happen. I believe there is a God. I believe that he is a loving God and he wants what's best for us. And that I do believe in the power of prayer and those things. And so, right, it's not us. At the end of the day, it's all those around us. And but the concept of extreme ownership, that we have to look at things. It's up to us to make things happen. It's up to us to decide what we want and go after that thing we want to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, to look internally and say, why didn't this happen, and internalize it. And I think most failures in business, in my life, and all those things, if I look back into it, I realize it was my fault, not necessarily somebody else's fault. Yeah. That's not to say bad things don't happen, or things sometimes can be out of your control. So the first thing is this concept of extreme ownership. I truly believe this is if we implement it in our lives, it is one of those keys that can take us to the next level. Health is always one of those, and that's not necessarily a secret. Keeping yourself healthy, exercising. I'm not an example of this at all, but I do recognize that when I work out and I eat healthy, my life is better. It's easier to do things. It's easier to be happy. It's easier to get work done. It's easier to do those things. One of the most recent things that, and I've discovered it over the last couple of years, and I think as a culture, we're discovering this, is the benefits of cold therapy, like taking ice baths, right? You can't get on Instagram now without seeing someone post about them being in an ice bath. And, but the reason it's we're seeing this all over is because it does have true power. It does bring significant benefit when it's done. For me personally, right? Everybody asks, well, why do you do it? Why do you do cold baths? Why do you do that type of stuff? Well, it's not necessarily it helps with inflammation. It helps with all these things. When I work out hard, it helps me recover faster. But the thing that's best about it for me is that mentally, I'm able to make a significant change in my day. I'm more alert during the day. If I'm having a bad day and I take a bath, a cold bath, it takes my mind to a better place. It's almost forced meditation because you're sitting there freezing. You're trying to kind of just put yourself in a mind frame that is stop from shivering and just focus. Yeah. Man, I'm going down a path that I didn't expect I'd go. But I think the overall thing is there are secrets out there. There are hidden keys that if we search, this pursuit, if we have this focus on pursuing progress, that we will find these things that you just find a new key and it opens up this whole new world. Being in Watt has started to open up some of those keys. Vulnerability, being vulnerable. And I feel like I'm normally a pretty vulnerable guy. I'll lay my cards on the table, but that alone has shown me like getting into a deeper vulnerability with certain things that we've done has been significant. Let me wrap this up because I don't know where I'm going with this. Those keys. Oh gosh, there's so many things that are going through my head. That for those that don't, I'll go back to being a father, the thing I love the most. I'm usually an emotional guy, and I'm surprised I haven't needed these tissues yet because usually when I get talking about this stuff, I'll start getting emotional, and there we go. Being a father is the best thing in the world, and I imagine mothers would probably say the same thing. Now, that doesn't mean it's also sometimes the worst thing in the world, but serving others, and it goes down to the service. It's the service is what makes it as you serve, and then they start growing and you start seeing that growth, and that service turns into love. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but just having that opportunity is amazing. Yeah. And if there's any young people that are watching this, I don't know. I don't imagine there's going to be very many people that get to this point in the podcast. But if you get to this point, and you haven't had that opportunity, it's amazing. It is the most amazing thing in the world to be a father, to be a mother. I don't know about mother, but since I'm a father, I can say it's the most amazing thing in the world to be a father. So keep yourself to the level to be that father. If you have that opportunity, take that opportunity. It's so amazing. It's just hands down the best thing in the world. So, that was completely disjointed, but that's where.
No, thanks for sharing, man. I think it's kind of fun to see like a real response though, too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just getting the pat answer, like, be a good person. It's like, okay, I like that you sharing your thoughts.
Yeah.
So,
this was fun. I'm so glad I got to be here, and I don't think there's anything that I spoke about that I'm going to regret down the road.
You never know.
Yeah, that's right. I never know.
No, I love it, man. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.